Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, we're going to be learning a funk jam that I wrote with some inspiration. So I thought I'd kick off this lesson talking a little bit about how this song came about. Now, I happen to be a pretty big John Mayer fan, and this is actually the trio group, the John Mayer Trio. It's got Steve Jordan and Pino Palladino, amazing musicians. And they put out an album quite a while back. I think it was 2005 or something like that. And one of the songs on that album is called Who Did You Think I Was? And I'll put a link to it in the description box below if you want to check it out. But the main riff that's in this funk jam is actually, it's derived from that riff. So if you listen to that song, you'll hear that the first half of the riff, bum ba da 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 bum ba dum, that's the riff from the John Mayer tune. You'll hear that riff, that first handful of notes that riff starts with, is the same that I used for this funk jam. Now you may be thinking, well, isn't that like copying and pasting or plagiarizing or whatever? Well, here's an interesting thought. I'm gonna play a few songs and I want you to tell me what you notice, okay? So check it out. So, Sunshine of Your Love, right? The riff to Sunshine of Your Love. Here's the next one. Funky Town. And here's the third one, even simpler. Girl, you really got me now, right? So those are three songs. There's actually a fourth one that comes to mind, which is NIB by Black Sabbath. But anyways, I digress. There's three songs that I just played for you, and they all have that same little handful of notes that are comprising the opening riffs, right? So they're all kind of using the same kind of feel and same sound and same, copy and paste. But is it plagiarizing? Is it copying each other? I don't know. And I bet if you think even more about it, you'll start to recognize there's probably even more songs that were big hits that were the same kind of opening little motif, so to speak. So with this tune, I wanted to kind of take that idea. I wanted to write a song where I didn't have to start from scratch. Instead, I could play something that sounded really cool, and I could take that as my starting point and then just write around it and expand it and kind of take it and make it my own, so to speak. So if you like songwriting, that's a really cool thing that you can do, because it's a daunting task to sit down at your desk and go, I'm going to write a song from nothing. This, on the other hand, gives you a starting point, and it's really a fun one. How can I take something I love and make it my own? So anyways, let's talk a little bit about this song and learning it. So this, needless to say, is an advanced piece. Now, what makes it advanced is that there's a lot of technique that's required for not only the right hand, but also the left hand. But there's also a lot of syncopation with the rhythm that we're going to be playing. And we're going to approach it learning two ways. We're going to be counting rhythms as we go throughout it, but we're also going to be kind of playing by ear. If you can sing it, you can play it, that kind of mentality. So we'll talk about that as we jump into the lesson, but I do want to state this is for the advanced player. So I wouldn't tackle this if you're below that. If you're curious on how I define the beginner, intermediate, and advanced player, you can find out by clicking this link. But with this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and split it into two parts. So this video will be the part 1, and then in the part 2 lesson, we'll learn the second half of the tune. So if you want to watch the part 2 lesson, you can click this link, or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, and do a search for Funk Jam. Also on that page will be the tabs that you can print and follow along with throughout this lesson, plus the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we want to talk about before we actually jump into learning this song. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that it kicks off with a really cool funky strum pattern. And for this strum pattern, all we're going to be doing is just using straight up, simple down and up strumming technique. So not much to say there. Then when you go into playing the actual kind of single notes and some of those little legato licks, that's going to be what I like to term a hybrid picking approach. So this is what I do, and you can do what's comfortable for your playing style, but I'd like to show you what I like to do. So this hybrid technique that I'm using is a mix of piccato and using my thumb. So piccato picking is just fancy terminology that means alternate picking. So if you take the E string, you want to lead with the middle finger and follow with the index. So middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, and so forth. So just alternate picking. Now the beauty of this is that it cuts down the work of the right hand, because if you use one finger, you have to work twice as hard. So you can see that it's just a really efficient way to play faster. Now I'm going to use piccato picking for anything on the first, second, and then when I get to the third or the fourth string, I'm going to use my thumb, just regular down attack with my thumb. So nothing fancy happening there. But that's my little hybrid approach that I'm using once we kick into that kind of stuff. And you can mix and match, you don't have to follow that to a T either. Again, you can do whatever's comfortable and whatever fits your playing style. But it gives you a little bit of insight into how I'm approaching it. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this intro. Now, the intro is 4 bars in length. And the big takeaway here is that the first 3 bars, they are doing a funky strum pattern. So I'm going to play the first 3 bars, and then we'll tackle the 4th one at the end. But let's just work on the first 3 because they use the same playing style. So here's what the first 3 bars sound like. Okay, so that's a pretty good gist. Now, if you have a really good ear, you may notice that bar 1 and bar 2 are identical, and bar 3 will have a different start to it, but an identical end to it. So let's break down what's happening, and we're going to go step by step for this. So here's the first thing. This is the big elephant in the room, so to speak. The strum pattern that we're playing is going to be based out of 16th notes. So on one of these sides, I'll put up the 16th notes as it correlates to down and up strumming. Now, as you can see, you have literally just alternating like that piccato technique, down, up, down, up, down, up for your strumming. So the thing that you have to memorize is this, that you strum down on 1, up on E, down on end, up on A. So you got to memorize that, right? So as you work throughout these next few bars, anytime there's a 1, you're down. Anytime it's an E, you're up. Anytime it's an end, you're down. Anytime it's an A, you're up. And that follows for all of the beats. So 2E and A, 3E and A, 4E and A. Okay? So you just got to memorize when you strum down and when you strum up as it relates to 16th notes. So if we put up measure number 1 right here, and I'll put up the rhythm hits as well. So we'll have tab and the rhythm hits. You can see that our rhythm, just for the first half, let's look at the first half. We have 1, 2, and A. So it's actually not too hard. But here's what I want you to do. Instead of playing it or anything, I want you to just count out loud and clap with me. So we're going to go 3, 4, 1, 2, and a 3, 4, and 1, 2, and a 3, 4 with me. 1, 2, and a 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, and a. Awesome. So that's the first thing. You want to get that rhythm, internalized. You want to understand exactly what you're playing. Now, going back to what I first showed you, you know that you strum down on 1, you strum down on 2, you strum down on end, and you strum up on A. So you have down, 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 up. Okay? So without even making a chord, we can just mute the strings, right? Lightly touch the strings. Down, 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 up. Okay? Let's see if we can try that. 3, 4, down, 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 up. Nice. One more time. 3, 4, 1, 2, and A. Awesome. So being able to do that is, it takes you to that next level, right? How many times have you heard somebody, when you go, what's the strum pattern? They go down, down, up, down, up, and we all know that strum pattern. It's the island strum, but that doesn't tell you what rhythm you're actually playing. The island strum is 1, 2 end, and 4 end, right? We need to know what we're playing, especially if we have no context of what it sounds like first. So understanding rhythm is really a key to unlocking becoming a much better musician. So if you want to study and really understand how rhythm and timing connect, I'd highly encourage you to jump into our reading course, because it takes tab away and really gets you down in the trenches, so to speak. And so you can really, really understand and internalize rhythms and really, really just lock in with the metronome and tempos and grooving and all that fun stuff. Okay, so going back into this. So now that we kind of have a little good understanding of the first half of this measure, let's actually do one really, really excellent way of approaching this tune to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to give you I think it's better to say an alternative way to approach learning this. So here's what I mean. It'll make sense. Instead of making this chord, right, we're going to hold off on making the chord for a second. I want you just to look at the first string. Okay, you can see that the notes on the first string are 5, 5, X5. Okay, so 5, 5, X5. So you can use your middle finger, your first finger, it doesn't matter. Just use whatever finger you want on the 5th fret of string 1. And I want you to play that note with that rhythm that we've gone over. 1, 2, and Okay? Now you see for the X, what you do for the X is you lift pressure up. So you're still touching the string, but you're not pushing down, so the note's not ringing out. Okay? So you're just going to lift pressure up, same as if you were doing a muted strum where you lightly touch the string, but you lift pressure up, and that's what's going to give you that muted sound. Okay, so I have down, down, up, down, right? So keeping it down, 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 lifting up, putting it back down. But match me to that rhythm. Let's try it. 3, 4, 1, 2, and Okay, so I wanted you to go through me with this as a single note, because I know that some people will have a little bit of trouble at the get-go trying to put the chord in with the muted strums and all that stuff. So if you have trouble doing this, you can simplify it to single note, okay? That'll help you internalize the rhythm even better and get comfortable with how this is supposed to sound, okay? So try that if you need help with it, but let's go ahead and look at how to make this chord. So the chord we're playing is a D9. So it's a dominant with an E note in there. So to make this chord, we've got the first finger on the 4th fret of string 4, middle finger is 5 on string 3, ring is under it, 5 on 2, pinky's under it, 5 on 1. And that gives us a really cool sounding dominant chord. So take a moment just to get comfortable with this. Keep in mind too that we want to have a nice U-shaped gap with our thumb slightly above the middle of the neck. If you're new to understanding or studying proper left hand form, it's really vital for making any kind of chord, not just these cowboy chords, but also these bar chords, even these harder bar chords, kind of like what we're doing, even though we're not playing it as a partial bar, we're doing it as 4 fingers, just to make it easier for when we do the muted hits. But if you want to recap on anything related to getting form down, I'll put a link in the description box below to our lesson that covers that. So let's go ahead and try to do this strum and the mute, and let me break down exactly what's happening. So you're going to start with a down strum with the chord held down. That's beat 1. Then on beat 2, you're going to do a down strum again. And then we're going to lift the pressure up, just like we talked about with the single note. So you lift pressure up for all 4 strings, and you're going to be lightly touching across all 4, same as if you were doing something like this. Lightly touch so it mutes, okay? You're going to go down again, and then you're going to push back down and strum up. So you have 1, 2, and okay? So the trick here is to lift the pressure up. 1, 2, and So you lift that pressure up so you get that nice muted strum. That's what makes this hard, and that's why I was saying if that's tricky, just start with a single note just to get used to it, okay? But let's see if we can try it together. So we have 3, 4, 1, 2, and a. Awesome. One more time. 3, 4. Nice. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the second half of this measure. So if we look at just beat 3, we can see that we're resting on beat 3. We have a hit on E, rest on the end, and a hit on A. So we have syncopation. This is the hardest part of the measure, is beat 3 in and of itself, because you're hitting on the syncopated parts. You're hitting on E, and then you're hitting on A. So that is really, really tricky. But if you look at beat 4, it becomes really easy. It's the same as what we did for beat 2, 4 and A. So very, very simple for that. So you've got 1E and a, 2E and a, E, a, 4 and a, 1E and a, 2E and a, E, a, 4 and a. So very, very tricky. And it feels a little bit weird to kind of start in the second half of that measure to go E, a, 4 and a, right? It's a little bit of a kind of abrupt start, so to speak. But let's see if we can try and learn what's happening. And then the best way to approach playing this is to actually tack on the first half that we already know how to play and play this measure as a complete phrase, okay? So let's look at what's happening for beat 3. So we know that for the E, we strum up, okay? And we know for the A, we strum up. But for the A, you're doing the muted strum, okay? So you have 2 up strums, but you have it with a chord and then a mute. Now for beat 4, you go down, and then we're going to go down, up with 2 muted strums. So up, up, down, down, up. So you just got to memorize chord, mute, 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 okay? But really, really focus in on getting that right hand down. Up, up, down, down, up. Okay? So 1E and a 2E and a 3E, a 4 and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E, a 4 and a. Right? It's tricky for me to even count and play all of that stuff together. But like I said a second ago, it's really, really kind of feels like abrupt to start in the middle. I think this makes so much more sense if you play the first half and tack on the second half. So that would sound like this. 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, and a, 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, and a. Okay, so ba, ba, ch, da, da, ch, da, 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 ch, da, da, ch, da, da, da. That's what you want to get stuck down. So you can sing it like that. You can sing the beats, or you can even kind of sing the hits. 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, and a, right? So you can try both of those ways. That's a good way for kind of internalizing the beat. If you can sing it, you can play it. But it's also just great to really kind of hone in and know exactly when you're hitting on what beat and so forth. So let's see if we can try the entire thing. So we have down, 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 up, 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 down, down, up. Okay, so 3, 4, 1, 2, and a, E, a, 4, and a. Okay, so you may want to just hit pause and just really, really practice just this one measure. And keep in mind too that measure 2 is 100% identical. So in reality, if you learn it once, you've got it twice, right? So let's try this. Let's see if we can try 2 times in a row. 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2 and a E, a 4 and a 1, 2 and a E, a 4 and a. So very, very tricky stuff, but once you start to get it down, it sounds super duper cool. Now, if we take a look at measure number 3, you're going to notice one thing, and I think I did mention it in the beginning of this lesson. If you look at from the second half, so from beat 3, E, a 4, and a, 100% identical. So the second half of measure 3 is 100% identical to what we did for measure 1 and 2 for the second half. So the only thing that changes for measure 3 is the first half. If you look at the first half, it's actually really simple. It's straight up 16th notes. So you have 1E and a, 2E and a. And as we already know, that one's really easy because it's just down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So what you have to memorize with measure 3 is just when you're playing the chord versus when you're playing the muted strum, okay? So you have, it's that simple. So we have 2 hits with the chord, down, up, 2 hits with muted, down, up, 2 hits with the chord, down, up, 1 hit muted, and then 1 more chord going up. So down, up, mute, mute, down, up, mute, up. Okay, let's try that. 3 E and 4 E and Okay, and remember the second half, ba, 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 ba. You already know, E, 4 and So you're just copying, pasting. So let's see if we can try that entire measure together. Sounds like this first. Okay, 3 E and 4 E and Okay, so tricky stuff. But again, the big key is to know when to strum down, when to strum up as it relates to the 16th note rhythm, and then just to internalize these rhythms. You can sing it, you can play it, but also approach learning it so you know exactly what rhythms you're hitting on and which ones you're not. Now here's the thing, when you start to play at a faster tempo, you may feel some of those rest with an extra muted strum. So don't feel like you have to play this 3 measures 100% as we covered it to a T. You can kind of take it and make it your own, but kind of keep that funky vibe intact. So playing it faster will sound a little bit like. Right, but it keeps that little funky feel intact. So really cool piece of music. Now here's the other thing too with this intro. This intro feels like you want to play it fast to get that real, energized funk feel. But you got to keep in mind that whatever tempo you start this song off for the intro, you need to continue for when you go into. And playing something that's that fast, I don't think it sounds as good for the next part. So you kind of want to match. Right, you want to match the feel that's kind of, a little bit chill, but a little bit accelerated at the same time, right? So don't play the intro super duper fast and then go into this slow riff, right? Make sure that your tempo stays steady. Okay, let's tackle the 4th bar for this intro, and it's a completely different playing style. We have this cool little legato pentatonic licks. Okay, so let's break down what's happening. So we're going to be playing out of a box. Our box is from 5 to 8. Okay, so that means that each finger gets its own fret. Index gets everything on 5, middle gets everything on 6, ring is everything on 7, pink is everything on 8. So that makes this playing really efficient for our left hand. So keep that in mind. So go ahead and place the index on 5 on string 1, pinky on 8. We're just going to leave our index finger there. We're going to go ahead and do a pull-off lick. We've got 8. It's going to pull off to 7 with the ring finger, and then to 5. Okay, so we have 8, 7, 5. Then on string 2, we're going to 8, and you can see that my index stayed anchored. So I'm staying anchored because I got to go back to 5 on 1. So I have pull-off, 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 8, 5 on 1. Okay, let's try that. And rhythmically, straight up 16ths. 1 E and 2. Okay, let's give that a shot. 4 E and Nice. Now if we look at the second part, we're going to be playing off of string 2 now. So just move your index finger up to the 5th fret of string 2, and our pinky is 8 on string 2. We're going to do a pull-off, 8 to 5. And then I want you to play 7 on string 3. And let's actually stop there. So we're just going to go 8, 5, 7. Okay? So you have pull off, then ring, play 7 on string 3. So this context, we actually need to backtrack and play to put it into context. That's what I meant to say. To put it into context, we should really connect the first part to the second. that gives us the first half of the measure. So 8, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8, 5, 7. Let's try just that. Keep it steady because it's all 16th note rhythm. 4, E, and ah. E, and ah, 2, E, and ah. Nice. So not too hard. I think the hard part might be the little transition going up from the first to the second string, but not too hard. Let's look at the second half of this measure. We have 8, 7, 5 on string 2. So we're starting the same as we did for the first part of this, but now we're on string 2. So 8, 7, 5, then 7 on string 3, and back to 5 on string 2. So 8, 7, 5, 7, 5. Okay, so let's try just that. 2, E, and ah. Okay, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We have, again, movement with the index finger. So you're going to move the index finger up to 5 on string 3 and end with your ring finger on 7 on string 4. So watch my index finger as I play throughout this entire thing. It's got a little bit of jumping around as I keep moving up from first to second to third string. So that's going to be where you really want to focus on. You want to get this lick memorized, but you want to practice or put your focus on what your index finger is doing. And I'm going to give you one tip right here. So check out, when I get to 5, 5, 7, the last 3 notes, watch what my index finger does. It's like making the minor chord, right? Essentially, I'm doing a partial bar going into the ending. Ba da da. So instead of me going ba ba ba, moving up individually, I can just do a partial bar to make the ending easier and also to get that nice ringing out sound. Okay, so try that. Try the little partial bar when you get to the last 3 notes. All right, but let's see if we can try this entire measure together. So we have 8, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 8, 7, 5, 7, 5, 5, 7. So here we go. 3, E, and ah. 4, E, and ah. Nice. So start nice and slow like that. Don't try to go fast from the get-go. Now that we've got the entire intro learned, you also have to keep in mind what I said before. You got to pick the right tempo for the intro, right? Because when you go into the riff, it needs to continue that tempo. So don't play the intro super fast and then go into the riff at a slower tempo. Try to keep it nice and steady. A little sloppy at the end, but you hear the tempo stay nice and steady, right? So this is a tune that, you know, you can play slower, you can play a little bit upbeat, and it sounds cool either way. But the key thing is don't rush the intro and slow down on the riff, okay? But that, I think, gives us a pretty good idea. I'll play a little bit faster for this intro, and that'll kind of summarize all 4 bars. Okay, so that's what it sounds like at a really quick tempo. And again, I wouldn't play it that fast because the riff would be way too fast at that speed. But it sounds really cool. Like if you want a cool little fast playing piece to work on, this little intro can be that. All right, so let's go ahead and kick into our riff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play just the first measure, and then we'll break it down and learn it. Okay, so that's what the first bar sounds like. And this again was the part where we get into the John Mayer riff. So the John Mayer riff starts just like that. The rest of it is what I put in. So the second half is what I added to it. So it's taking that little songwriting concept that I covered in the beginning of the tune, or the beginning of this lesson, and it's a really cool way to write, right? You can take something and then build upon it, so to speak. But anyways, let's go ahead and learn how to play it. So we're starting out with just a little A5, so power chord. So take the index, lay flat on fret 2, string 4 and 3. So we're just going to pluck that, and then we're going to do this tritone slide. So it's going to be 4 and 5, so index and middle on 4 and 5. And you slide up to 5 and 6. So you have ba, ba, da. Okay? Now if you look at the rhythm, it's really simple. So it's 1 and so nothing hard is happening right here. But let's see if we can try that. 3, 4, 1 and nice. So going on to beat 2, we're going to do 2 muted strums, just down, up, and then give me a hammer on 5 to 7 on the 4th string. Okay, so you have 1 and 2 E and okay, let's see if we can try that. 3, 4, 1 and 2 E and okay, let's slow it down. 3, 4, 1 and 2 E and nice. Now as we get into beat 3, we're going to add a slap. So we're just going to slap, instead of a muted strum down, we're going to slap, and then we're going to do a little bit of flourish. Okay? So this flourish, let's press pause on it for just a second. If you look at beat E, right, you can notice that there's a little 7 to 8 slide. That's called a grace note, okay? So that's adding the flourish to this section right here. But let's just get rid of that, and let's just go 8, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. Because that way you can actually hear the rhythm that we're playing. 3 E and 4 E and right? 3 E and 4 E and So I got rid of the 7 to 8 slide and I simplified it. Right, that makes so much more sense because that really kind of confuses us rhythmically, okay? So if you want to first kind of internalize and get this rhythm more straightforward, cut that out and just go 8, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. But if you want to play it as written, let's go ahead and add that little slide. So backtracking, on beat 3 we're going to add a little slap. And then we're going to do this flourish. So we're going to go slide up 7 to 8 with the ring, go back to 7, and then pull off to the index finger on 5. So all that's on string 3. But it's fast, right? So you have 3 E and So that's why I'm saying cut out the little slide if you want to make it easier from the get-go. But we have slap, slide, back, pull off. E and so 1, 2, 3 and let's try that. 1, 2, 3 and okay. So you can even slow that down even more if you need to, but that's essentially what's happening. If you look at the last half, the last beat, you're just going 7, 5, 7, 5 on string 3 to string 4. Okay, so a very, very simple way to end it. So let's see if we can try from beat 3 and add beat 4. Sounds like that. Let me play a little less sloppy. Okay, let's see if we can try. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and but let's go slower. How about that? 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so there's a few times in a row. One of them was kind of sloppy that I did, and that's actually a good point. As you're practicing, if you mess up one time, don't worry about it, just keep going, right? We're just here practicing right now, and that's the whole point of practicing, is to get our playing cleaner, okay? So loop that second half just like that to get it down. But if you've got it, let's try the entire measure. So one time by myself sounds like this. 3, 4, 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, here we go. 3, 4. Okay, so really, really tricky to get down, and I think especially with that part. So if you want to make it easier, you can cut that little slide out. All right, as we go into the next measure, it's going to start exactly the same. So you have, okay, so nothing changes for the first half. So if we look at the second half, it's going to sound like this. Okay, so we've got a slap just like we had in measure 1 for this section. Then we're going to slide and then add an extra note. So here's the thing that's really hard. If you look at that rhythm, you can see that you slap on 3. We have a 32nd note. We can consider that a 16th note. Just call it E. So we have 3E. Then on end, you're going to be adding that extra note. So E end. So that's the thing. Rhythmically, you're not hesitating after these slaps. You're going right into E and then end. Okay, 3E end. So there's no gap between slap, pause, 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 slide, and then extra note. Slap. You're going straight up into it. That's what's really tough, I think, rhythmically. So I'm going to slap, then I'm going to take that ring, go 7 to 9 on string 3, and middle finger goes 8 on string 2. Okay, so 3 end. Let's try that. 1, 2, slap, slide, 8. Okay. Now that's going to get held out. It's going to get tied into beat 4. Then at the end, you have enda. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Enda. Okay, let's try that. 1, 2, slap, 7, 8, 4. Enda. So just down, up for that little muted strum. So the second half I think is tricky with just with that rhythms in beat 3. So it seems like this song, beat 3, is what's a little bit tricky. But let's see if we can try this 6 measure all the way through, or if you can think of it as the second measure in riff 1. But here we go. 3, 4. Okay, let's try again. 3, 4. Okay, so a little bit tricky, but once you get it down, it starts to come together. Let's see if we can backtrack. Let's try measure 1 into 2, or 5 into 6 if you're following with the tab. 3, 4. Okay, so that's everything for the first couple bars. Now, when you go into the next one, this is going to be ending 1, so the next 2 bars, they're going to sound like this. So a lot happening, but let's break down exactly what is happening. So it's going to start the same, guys. We have ba, ba, da, da, da. The same first half, identical. Now look at the next half. Up until the very last note. So up until the last note is identical to what you played in measure 5. So everything's the same up until that last note. If you look at the last note, it's going to be 5 on string 3. Okay, so bum, ba, da, da, da. You're just going to sub out 5 on string 3 instead of that pull off on string 4. Okay, 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Okay, let's see if we can try that. 3, 4. Okay, as we go into the next measure, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because the next measure, you're going to be holding that 5 on string 3 into beat 1. So if you look at the rhythm gets really syncopated here. You have and a 2 E, E, end. Okay, so that took me like 5 times to do correct. So instead of trying to do that, let's just play it by ear. Ba da 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 da. If you can get that memorized. Ba da 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 da. If you can get that memorized, it's gonna make this so much easier. Ba da 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 ba 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 da. So get that memorized, and let's see if we can play it just based off of ear. So we're gonna go on string 4, sev 5, sev, and then back to 5 on string 3. Now here's the kicker. You start on the end of beat 1. So when you finish up the previous measure, you're hanging on that note for quite a while. So you hear. So you hang on it. La da 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 ba da da da. Right? So very, very, very important. Okay? So going back, we're starting on sev 5, sev on string 4, then 5 on string 3. Ba da da da. Okay? So the thing that we need to really practice is the end of 7 going into that first half of measure 8. So let's see if we can try that. We're going to start on beat 3 for measure 7. 1E and 2E and 3. Okay, again, 3. Whoop. 1, 2. Again, 1, 2. Okay, so really, really tricky stuff that's happening right there. And I would just loop those ending, or that transition parts, the end of 7 going into 8. Now if we look at the rest of what's happening, we're just going sev 8, sev 5, sev. So very simple. 7 on string 3, pinky plays 8, back to sev, 5, and then finally sev on string 4. Sev 8, sev 5, sev. So with this one, again, it's just this kind of really drawn out syncopation. So you da 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 da. So don't rush any of those notes. Sev 8, sev 5, sev. Okay, so if we start just on this measure by itself, let's just try that. Ba da do da 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 da. So we start on the end of 1, 3E and a 4E and a 1E. Okay, so again, 2 big takeaways. You can practice that bar starting on the end of 1, but you also really want to practice that transition from the end of the previous measure. So that's the 2 things that I would practice with that. But let's backtrack. Let's try all of 7 and 8, which comprise ending number 1. So 3, 4. Okay, and if we try the first 4 bars together, we have 3, 4. Okay, so really, really tricky stuff. So slow it down and work on exactly, as I said, for the ending. So measure 8 and then the transition 7 into 8. Now here's the beauty, is that once you get that down, what you're going to do is you're going to backtrack. You're going to play the first 2 bars. Identical, so measure 5 and 6 again. Then you jump into ending number 2, so measure 9 and 10. Sounds like this. And as you can hear, the ending is so not crazy syncopated, so it's a breath of fresh air and easiness. All right, so let's break down measure number 9. Now we know the first half is the same. Okay? We know again that the second half is going to be very similar up until that last note. because that last note is going to start a little bit of a chromatic walk down. Actually, second to last note, 7, 6, 5. That's going to be a little chromatic walk down. So you're doing everything the same as you did for measure 7 up until that last note. So when you get to the last note, you're just going to go down to 6 with the middle finger, and let's add the next note of the next measure, which is 5 on string 4. So you can see the chromatic 7, 6, 5. Okay, let's see if we can try that. 3, 4. Awesome. Now this note right here, this is going to start the last measure. So the last measure is going to go 5, 7, 5, 7. That's the first half, so very simple. 1 and 2 and we look at the second half, we have 8, 8, 9. So just use the ring finger, 8, 8, 9, and then 8, 10 on string 2, index to ring. So 5, 7, 5, 7, 8, 8, 9, 8, 10. I think that one's really, really easy. Let's see if we can try that. We have 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... It's a very easy way to end it, okay? But if we backtrack, ending number 2 sounds like this. Okay, let's try. 3, 4... Okay, so that gives us everything for this little riff. So again, the riff is just going to be played twice through. So you have ending 1. Here it is. Then repeats. Ending 2. Right, so the beauty there is that you have some repetition. So that makes it a little bit easier to learn in that regard. But let me go ahead and just cycle through everything and kind of play a little bit more to feel than kind of rushing through. And this gives us a gist of everything for the riff. So it sounds like this. 3, 4. Okay, so that gives us kind of a good feel of it overall. So that's where we're going to wrap up our part 1 lesson, and in the part 2 lesson we're going to go ahead and learn the second riff, which is this cool little funky little patterns that happen higher up. So if you want to watch the part 2 lesson and learn the last half of this tune, you can do so by clicking this link right here, or you can go to the site rockclass101.com, do a search for Funk Jam, and also on that page you'll be able to get the tabs that you can print and keep for your records, plus access that really cool interactive on-screen tab player, so you can literally hit play, you can loop sections, you can slow it down, and all of that is just a great way to learn something, especially syncopated and tricky like this tune. So guys, I hope you enjoyed learning this. This was a really fun one for me to write. I like that I got to do a little bit of a John Mayer tune, but kind of twist it around and make it my own, using that songwriting concept of borrowing from other great songs. So yeah, this one was a lot of fun for me to do. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the part 2 lesson. Take care.